Hello, welcome back to the Villa View. It's time for a post-match pint in association with Purity as Aston Villa win 2-1 away at Crystal Palace. An excellent day at Selhurst Park. Just while we're talking about Purity, if you do want to get 10% off all their beers and ales, you can use the code #VillaView and that will get you the discount. I've just got back from Selhurst Park, so I just fancy doing it, to be honest. A rare away game where we actually win when I go, and a rare time when I've only had one beer. So I thought, let's jump on. Let's talk about the game. And I'm happy to have Neil with me, who's also watched the game from his house, I believe. Neil, how are you?
I hope it's my house and I didn't stumble into somebody else's. Because unlike you,
I mean, it's a different layout. It's a different layout to normal.
Yeah. Unlike you, I've had more than one beer.
Okay. Didn't tell me that before we arranged to do the show.
It was only three. I'm only three, and so I'll be fine.
Okay. You'll be grand. Yeah, a Villa away win. Feels like a while since we've been speaking about a Villa home win, and then they go and win at home last week, and they've done the same again, but away from home. And I don't know about you, Neil, but I had a thoroughly enjoyable day and thought it was a very good away performance.
Yeah, look, one of the surprise packages in the league, obviously Crystal Palace this season, getting a great bounce from having a new manager and Patrick Vieira. They've utilized players very well. Obviously, Conor Gallagher getting all of the other plaudits that he deserves for a fantastic season so far. And then in rock Aston Villa, and very much so in the first half, absolutely dominate them in the first half. And that's something that we like, that's nice to see, because I know last season when there was no fans in grounds, Villa were going away and they were getting decent results. They were getting more than decent results away. But this time you go into the Lions Den, and we haven't had very good away performances this season. Well, we've had okay, but it was nice to get away performance like this against the team that was considered a form team at the time, and obviously with everybody in their backyard. So with fans being allowed back into the stadium, and for us to come out and dominate a team like that in the first half, I think it was fantastic.
Trying to call out the comment that just popped up on the bottom of the screen, Chris Dolan asking where his invite was. You could have been in the game today, and you actually said it live on the Villa View on Thursday. I am busy on Saturday, so I assumed plans with the wife went into the evening. So Dolan, I apologize, if you want to come on, by all means, get Adam to sort you out, and we'll get you a link over and pop on. But you said you were busy with your wife, so I left you to it. Yeah, you could have been in the game today and you chose not to, so naughty points for that. Yeah, first half we were very, very good now. I thought it was as good a away first half as I've seen Villa put in for many a year. And that's actually Palace, that's the first time they've lost at home all season. We beat Brighton last week, that's the first time they've lost away all season. We're starting to look like a decent side over the last couple of games, and there's loads of little things I've picked. Oh geez, get him off. Look, I can hear Dolan. He's out. He's trying to come on the show and he's not even at home. Absolute shambles. Please can you mute him though, Adam, because all I can hear is Dolan's not out. He's gone. Don't know what's going on here. Sorry, apologies. Absolute shambles. Sack the producer, because all I can hear is Dolan now on his night out and nothing else. But there's some really interesting things, Neil. I noticed straight away. I had a different where I normally sit in the Holte end, so when I'm watching football, I'm usually behind the goal. Today I was in the director's box, so I'm not going to go on about that too much. But that's where I was. I had a different viewpoint on that. On the halfway line. But I tell you what, straight away from minute one, you could see the stuff they'd worked on in training. Because when a player pressed, they all moved as one. It was so intricate. There was so much rhythm in what Villa were doing, and you could just see straight away that they knew where they were supposed to be tactically, off the ball, on the ball. We pushed the fullbacks really, really high up, and McGinn and Ramsey did a lot of great defensive work that you probably wouldn't have even noticed, because they didn't bomb on forward. They would always push wide and cover off the Crystal Palace wide players whilst the fullbacks pushed up. It was a very tactically astute performance from Villa today. I was really pleased with what I saw.
I agree. I absolutely agree with that as well. And I agree with the McGinn and Ramsey piece as well. I think Ramsey ran himself into the ground, didn't get on the ball as much. In the first half he did, but definitely in defensive positions, I thought that they got back very well. And you have to throw your hands up and say marvelous Nakamba is, as you mentioned there. Game. Yeah, but as you mentioned there about moving in that unit, he just doesn't. He And he actually did against Watford in the first game of the season, but in the last two games, he doesn't leave his defensive duty, if that makes sense. So it's easier for the two guys to move to move either side of him if he's staying there as kind of the keystone at that defensive midfielder position. And I really liked how he played, and it allowed the other two guys just to get around the field. I thought was fantastic in defense, but it's interesting. I noticed something in attack as well, and it's something that hadn't happened under Dean Smith, but have you noticed the amount of balls that are played into feet in and around the middle of the field, or maybe just bordering on the attacking third, played into feet? The person who gets it just lays it back to the player who's just played the ball, and are just
a lot of 1-2s.
Yeah, a lot of 1-2s, a lot of just around the corner passes and triangles and stuff like that. And it's so funny. It's like we're all taught it from 13, 14 years of age playing football, but it's so simple. And you see, it allowed us to break at pace almost better than if you were to give it to Liam Bailey and let him run straight, because what it did was it moved defenders and it moved the central midfielders. And to be honest with you, Kayate he's just an anti-footballer. He was an anti-footballer today. I thought he was immune to getting a yellow card today, but it really got him off his perch. And we forced them into making tackles, last ditch tackles, sometimes tackles from behind. They got away with things like that. But I was really impressed with that in the first half. That it played into our strengths of getting the ball forward quickly without having to lump it up into the sky. Because Watkins wasn't going to win the ball against Sky and Tompkins up there.
Watkins had one of those days where he absolutely ran his socks off, worked so hard up top. He said one of those days where he'd have spells where the ball would just keep bouncing off him. Couldn't seem to get it under control. You know, as I say, he works so hard. But I do think there's still some work to be done in the front three. You know, it was a different front three today. You know, Young and Bailey came in, Buendia and Ings made way. So that's two different front threes across Steven Gerrard's first two games. I thought it was kind of a more of an away front three today, the way he set up. And I think the game before, obviously, we were at home, was more of a home setup, having Buendia in there. But we did, Watkins, even though he didn't have his best game, he would just get us a little bit higher at the pitch than I think we would be. And as I say, you know, the ball bounced off him quite a lot. He struggled with hold-up play today, despite running his socks off. But you know, Young had a good game in and around him. Ashley Young was really good today. I thought just to give that level of experience and know-how on the pitch, knows when to go backwards, knows when to go forwards. He just does the right things at the right times, and that was really noticeable today. Because I thought Mings, especially in the first half, was imperious today. There was one run where Benteke ran at Villa's defence and could have got himself through on goal, and Mings got himself back in. He made it look really easy what he did, but it wasn't. It was a really strong performance from Mings again, building on what he did against Brighton last week, and he looks like he's getting towards somewhere back to his best now. Yeah,
just on the Ashley Young part first, John, when you mentioned it was an away performance, and I'll get onto the Mings piece afterwards, but actually even going back two questions ago when you mentioned that there was a different kind of a setup up there, and I think Ashley Young was played up there for specifically to kind of add that extra bit of kind of nous and leadership up top, because you know it can be very difficult with Mings being centre half. Obviously he's got his own duties, he's a captain, he's going to be calling the defensive plays, he's going to be calling the you know things at corners potentially and set pieces. But when you move up the field, and now that we've got people back into the stadia again, when we had no one in the stadia, the first thing everyone would say is you could hear Tyrone Mings from a country mile away. Whereas now there's people back in the stadiums, you know, having somebody up there like an Ashley Young to maybe communicate the manager's thoughts, or to communicate maybe, you know, the setups or the you know, the formational changes that they were making is very beneficial. And I said it in our own team sheet tantrum beforehand, that potentially, you know, the fact that old habits die hard. And I said Dean Smith, Steven Gerrard has only had the bones of about 10 days with all the players, I would say, if even, considering they were away on international duty. You know, you need somebody who can maybe give reminders on the field to players. And I know that might sound silly when you've got professional footballers, but I think that was one of the reasons why Young was played up there, was, you know, from his leadership skills more so than anything else. And he had a pretty good game, I thought. Obviously he got the assist, but you mentioned Mings there. I thought Mings was fantastic. Dealt with Benteke, didn't get involved in anything. Zaha was his natural self there, you know, trying to wind people up, and he got his yellow card and didn't play particularly well, but Mings didn't rise to anything in there. He was fantastic. And when he went down with that ankle injury, I was really worried. that maybe he was going to be gone for a couple of weeks because, we don't need him gone for the murderer's row of games that we have coming up. And, fair play to him. I think that he's really kind of steadied the ship back there. And today was another performance that he can be proud of.
Yeah, I mean, this show's very off the cuff, so it may seem a little bit all over the place, but I'm literally just thinking things and just saying them to Neil because I've just got back. And I'm just thinking about defensively, the shape today I found quite interesting. So when we were defending off the ball, at the back four, not just I wouldn't say they were narrow, I wouldn't say they were spread out, they were just normal. Then you had the three in front of them. But when we were defending, the two off Watkins, they come inside so narrow to defend. It's like we're smothering in the middle of the park. We were forcing Crystal Palace out wide. But then when they were to go out wide, the people on the outside of the midfield three, they'd be so quick at getting out. You were never really disrupting the back four. I thought it was quite clever what Villa did today. I was really, really impressed with it. We limited Palace really. Palace were a good side with a lot of tricky and dangerous players. I mean, especially in the second half. They had a little bit more joy when they went 4-2-3-1 and put Eze as a 10. But Villa's, again, I can't tell you the difference in the shape and the game management. It's just I can't put my finger exactly on what's changed, but it just feels so much more efficient. It just feels more like everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing. And I'm sure they knew what they were supposed to be doing under Dean Smith. Whether or not they actioned it was another thing. But we just seem well drilled. That would be the phrase that I would keep coming back to, which is so impressive given the short time that Gerrard's had with the team.
And for me, it comes back what you mentioned there about the different setup that Young and Bailey did come in. I thought Young probably came in off his flank a small bit more, even to make it at times a 4-4-2 with Ramsey playing out in the left and Bailey and McGinn and Campbell being in midfield. But I think that was a very wise decision, was to push them wide, because it meant that Zaha and Olise had to stay away from Benteke, and it meant that they couldn't play the long ball up the field to just to get Benteke and try and get the second balls. And they didn't do that an awful lot, but they couldn't, because we crowded them out in midfield. Kouyaté and Milivojevic, in there, they just decided that they were going to stop and they weren't going to play football, and it was really on Conor Gallagher's shoulders to kind of carry the ball forward. Joel Ward is
he's a good player,
very good player. But Joel Ward, he's a holdover for years with Crystal Palace, and I'm sure he's a favorite. Like, we would have had maybe somebody like Mark Delaney. He's appreciated by their fans more so than he's appreciated by other fans. But Mitchell wasn't at the races, so that when they did go wide, they had to nearly try and come back inside again as well, which played into our favor. But a lot of it came down to the defensive work, and as you mentioned, of McGinn and Ramsey being able to cover off the fullbacks, being able to cover that ground and cover their own sides of the field, allowing the Nakamba to stay as that linchpin in midfield as well. It was very, very disciplined, I think is the word I would use.
Yeah, there's just an identity and a plan both going forward and defending at the moment that you can visibly see. I saw signs of it against Brighton, but now they've had the extra time. There was definitely a lot of things I picked up on today when I was watching the game. Let's talk about the key moments of the game. So we've talked about fullbacks being high. Matty Targett in the box for a corner, which I don't think we've seen much of, if ever at all, unless we were desperately chasing a game. He finds himself in there, takes up a clever position, nice first touch, lashes it home. Keeper perhaps could have done better. Benteke maybe got in the way a little bit of him, or he thought Benteke was going to deal with it. But good to see Targett in the box, and good to see him pick up a goal. And he's been very good. I thought he was man of the match in the last game, and he was very good defensively today. So I thought his all-round game against Brighton was excellent, but defensively today, he really stood out. And to add a goal as well, it's been a really good 7 days for Matty Targett, hasn't it?
Absolutely. And you love to see good things to happen to good guys, and like, I'm not going to sit here and try and rewrite history and say that we didn't dig him out at times and say, geez, he could have had a better game, and there have been games like that. But after his interview that he gave after, was it the Southampton game, and he looked like a broken man. The last 2 games he's just shown such character and courage, and I'd nearly even go so far as to say it's courage from him as well, because he hasn't shirked any of his duties against, as I said, he was against who was it today? It was Olise today, and Tariq Lamptey last week. And he pinned Elise back, and he had his fill at Joel Ward whenever he needed to go forward. And as you say, for him to get a goal like that, it could be a real turning point in his season, from a confidence point of view, because he's just, if you were to pick a guy who felt like he was down his luck to kind of get a break, it probably would have been Matt Targett, and we don't have much competition for him at left back, so we need Matt Targett playing well, until we do have competition for him. And as I say, I was absolutely thrilled for him. It couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
Yeah, lovely finish from Matt Targett. Good to see him on the score sheet. And then, start to play some nice football at 1-0. McGinn nearly scores with a lovely bending shot in the first half. We go into half time, pretty happy with what we've seen. Second half, Ramsey runs himself into the ground. Louise comes on. Could have left the pitch. I mean, I haven't seen it back, but straight away you just thought that is never, ever a red card. It's never been a red card in a million years. I don't know whether that's correct, what I'm saying, but obviously it got overturned by VAR. I'm presuming it was a joke decision.
Yeah, it wasn't great. Like this is a rookie ref coming in. Yeah,
you could tell it was his first game. He looked overawed. I thought
first I'd say even 2-3 minutes, Crystal Palace players got around him. They gave away a free at the edge of the area. I can't remember who was fouled. May have been Jacob Ramsey, and they got around him straight away. And I wouldn't even say overawed, but I think he had a reputation in the championship of cards. And I think he was just going to ref to his standard, today as well. And when the opportunity came to potentially give a red card, he gave it. And
panicked. Didn't give himself any thinking time. I'm not a referee. But he gave himself zero thinking time at all. It was almost like as soon as Louise even went for the tackle, he was in his back pocket.
Absolutely. And it was like a clash of their back legs, if I remember rightly. So it wasn't that he went over the ball, or he didn't, he had lost control of the ball, all right, but the tackle certainly was not dangerous. Like, even when you look back at it, the commentators never saying, yeah, that would have been a harsh red card as well. So I was incensed when the red card came out straight away. I was like, oh, didn't look like a red card. And even in the replays, I don't think it did as well. But I was going to say I would have felt hard done by if it was one of our guys, but it was one of our guys.
Yeah. Would have felt hard done by if he had not been overturned.
Yeah.
He looked straight away. I mean, he was right in front of me. I just thought he just looked like he slipped. I thought, and kind of it carried him into it. There was no intent, no malice whatsoever. There's no high. It wasn't high, just not studs up. But I just thought it was a bizarre decision to throw the red card at him. I mean, once they go over to VAR, you're pretty confident that it's going to be overturned. It would take a very, very strong referee to just carry on going with that decision, and I don't think that was the ref for that kind of thing today. No. I mean, VAR's worked there. I'm not just saying it because it's Villa, but VAR has worked there. That is what it's there for, and it's done us not done us a favour, but it's overturned something that should never have happened. So for us, VAR has been a good thing today. So I guess that's a positive. We've slagged VAR enough over the years, so I guess we should praise it when it works in our favour. Yeah. And against subs, that's something Gerrard's had a good run with so far. Both games, subs have made an impact. And Buendia and El Ghazi both came up on the pitch. And El Ghazi has not had much time in those two games, but he definitely made an impact in both games in his brief cameos. Lovely, lovely goal. Great work from Buendia. Great work from El Ghazi. Looks like he's perhaps overrun it and has got himself into one of his cul-de-sacs, but he just manages to shift it to McGinn. And it's one of those ones that as soon as he's lining up to hit it, you've just got a feeling that it's going to go in. And it did.
Yeah.
Lovely finish. And McGinn, 3 goals, I think that is for him this season. I'm pretty confident he only scored 3 goals last season off the top of my head. Could be bad knowledge from me, but I feel like he only scored 3 goals last season. So he's equalled his tally already, and he's going to thrive under Gerrard, isn't he? Because he didn't have much chance to get forward because he was performing those defensive duties, but then at the end of the game, he takes advantage of some extra space, gets forward. And he can be a good finisher, McGinn, can't he?
Yeah, well, look, he's Scotland form. Just look at that. He turned into prime.
Look at those stats.
There's some good stats. But he turned into prime Lionel Messi for Scotland there for a period. He just couldn't stop scoring against like the Faroe Islands and those. But he knows where to find the back of the net, and he scores good goals. Like, if you think back, John McGinn scores really good goals. Even remember last year, one that sticks into my mind is one that was chalked off for ridiculous offside against Arsenal.
The Arsenal.
Yeah, and that was an absolute belter. And if I'm not mistaken, his first goal wasn't it a worldie of a volley from outside the box against Sheffield Wednesday. Yeah. So he scores good goals, but look, the goal was fantastic. There must have been 20 passes prior to the ball going in the back of the net. But whatever about the goal, the celebration for me was even better. What a celebration with his
The
goggles.
away end looked like absolute carnage as well.
I saw that.
Do we know what that celebration's all about? Do we know what the goggles is all
Wasn't
about?
that something to do with it? It was like it was a fad or a phase or something like that was going on a couple of years ago, and he was able to do it. And it's just as simple as that. I don't know why he's continued it on,
Okay.
but it's an interesting one. If
We'll try
anybody
and find
knows,
out. We'll try and find out.
answers in a postcard.
Yeah, but great finish and great to see the Villa away fans.
Mm.
Obviously, I could see them from where I was sat. The atmosphere. To be fair, the Villa fans, Palace is a lively ground. I've got to say, I think they've got the best home fans in the Premier League. Palace. That one end is so loud, always bouncing. They stick with the team. They never boo. They always stay with Crystal Palace. And but you could still hear the Villa away end's always magnificent. You can just always hear it. And when that second goal went in, there'd have been no happier place to be in the country at that moment. Scenes of bedlam and carnage, a lot better than the scenes we'd seen the last time that fans were allowed at Sellers Park, and you've got stewards in there and people getting kicked out and stuff. It's just great to see this, and you think then, we're going to stay out the game comfortably again for the second week running. Brilliant. I mean, we did say how relatively comfortably, but we did have to concede at the end, didn't we? Martinez will be upset to lose his clean sheet bonus.
I actually, one of the rare times in the last 2 years that I've been able to get to watch the game with my dad, and he was here. He'd come up to visit today, and we were watching it. And I literally, it's my fault, by the way, that they scored, because I just turned around to him and said, "Wow, that's amazing! Two clean sheets and 2 wins. What more could he ask for?"
No,
and I
killed us now. Killed us.
I looked at my dodgy stream, and next thing I looked at him, and he was laughing, and he was there. Yeah, there you go. You just ruined it, So, but it was one of those ones whereby even the way that he kicks the ball, the striker or the centre half kicks the ball, Gray.
Yeah.
Even the way he kicks it, like it's going to come off his foot weird. And I think for a goalkeeper to try and even, unless you're going at a full-blooded and committed Peter Schmeichel style, and hoping that it hits off you, I don't think you're going to get your reactions down to save it. But it was one of those annoying little trickly ones there that, just a fella who forgot to leave the box after he'd come up, for a set piece. And it's one of those ones. I don't think, like, as I say, I mean, Martinez would be pissed off about it, but I'm not quite sure that Steven Gerrard will be losing too much sleep over it. Other than the fact that it came hot in the heels of something that he said that we need to cut out.
No, and then, we spent a bit of time down the corner at the end of the game. There wasn't long left, but we saw it out relatively comfortably. Some great work by El Ghazi, actually, in the corner, and Douglas Luiz too. So we see out the game without having to actually hang on, because I think there was only a couple of minutes left by the time that Palace had got their goal back. And it's a great win. Really, really good win. As I say, the Crystal Palace, the first time they've lost at home all season. It's something to be proud of. And you bounce up to 11th.
Yeah.
You lose a couple of games, you think, oh God, we're going to get relegated here. You win a couple of games, you move it to 11th, and suddenly you're 4 points off 6th.
Yeah.
So the Premier League's mad.
Absolutely. And who's to say, like, let's just say we pull a couple of points out of the next Murderers Rows I mentioned that we have.
A nice, easy game on Wednesday. Yeah. Really easy game on Wednesday.
A real handy game, exactly, against the injury-laden Man City, we'll call them, even though an injury-laden Man City still has a quarter of the GDP of Ireland still playing for them in transfer fees. But it's not a nice thing to look at, and you would be hoping that maybe you could sneak a point, maybe against or win against Leicester, to try and stem the bleeding between those two games. But I wouldn't be all against damage limitation in those 3 games, and then really rattle Burnley and look, welcome Dean Smith back, but shake his hand after a 2-0 win. When we go to see him again. And look, he's gotten Norwich flying as well, 4 points from 6, considering they couldn't buy.
That's heady days for Norwich in the Premier League over the last couple of times they've been there, to be honest. 4 points out of 6. That's as good as he's gotten for them.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's it's going to be interesting. Look, Wednesday is going to be interesting. And Steven Gerrard was very measured in how he spoke afterwards. He was asked about the game on Wednesday, and he said, listen, look, we've got a couple of things. We can still work on things for this game. We will only have 1 day, I think he said, or 2 days to work on formations and setups. He goes, but he knows things that he wants to work on specifically for the game. And then he said, look, we'll go there and we'll give it our best shot. And, realistically, I suppose, if Villa go there and they get anything out of the game, that will be a massive result for Aston Villa. And it'll be a massive couple of points, or maybe 3 or 2 points, whatever it is, drop from Man City if they don't get a win.
Yeah, I spoke to one of Gerard's close friends after the game, and he said, even as a manager, going up against Pep, going up against Manchester City, this is what he lives for.
Mm.
So even as a manager, he gets so excited and up for the big games. He wants to do well in them. He wants to test himself against the best. So yeah, he'll get the players up for it. He'll get them believing as well. If we'd have played Man City a few weeks ago, you'd have been thinking, oh God, how many is this going to be? They might still end up spanking us. But, we're coming into it now with a little bit of momentum. And you never know. And like I say, from what his mate was saying, Steven Gerrard lives for games like coming up against Pep, coming up against the best. He wants to test himself against the best.
Of,
He'll be playing to win. That's what he does.
of the perennial is even the wrong word to use, but of the most recent top six, we call them traditional top six, most recent traditional top six. Man City are the only team that we haven't beaten in the last 24 months. If I'm not mistaken,
Yeah,
we've beaten Chelsea, we've
probably
beaten
right. Yeah.
Liverpool, we've beaten United. Man City are the ones that we owe a beating to. If it's only a 1-0 scrape, goes in off someone's backside. And
when was the last time we beat them? I'm trying to think. Was it not that Weimann goal in front of the Holt? Was it? Was that the last time we beat them?
I think it could have been. Yeah, that's the one that comes
Jeez.
to my mind. That's 2014.
And if you look at our team that day, how on earth did we win that game and score 3 goals?
Look at it,
and only concede 2.
Look at our bench today. That's one of the our bench today was one of the strongest benches I can ever remember us having in the Premier League.
Danny Ings not being needed off the bench is pretty big, I would say.
Yeah, there was. I think I counted up. Douglas Luiz, £20 million player. Buendia, record signing. Danny Ings, £30 million player. There was the squad is there and it's getting healthy and long may that continue.
Yeah. Yeah, 2013 at Villa Park, I've just been told, 3-2. So it was the game. We were right. That was the last time we beat Manchester City at Villa Park. So overdue, I would say. Due one. But yeah, it'll be a really, really tough game. We will be back with a match preview before the Manchester City game, either tomorrow or Monday. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Thanks ever so much to Purity for continuing to sponsor us. To get 10% off their stuff, just use the code #VillaView. Thanks to Neil for jumping on last minute and deciding to have a chinwag with me about the game. As I say, I just got back. I was excited we'd won. I just wanted to talk about it. So I thought, where better to do it than on YouTube. Thanks to Adam as well, the producer, for jumping on last minute as well. Busy with family life, so it is always appreciated. I don't know how many people have watched, but if you have watched, I hope you have enjoyed it and you've taken something away from the show. Yeah, that does us. Watch out for the match preview and have an excellent weekend, because we always do when Villa win. Up the Villa.